The sound of ripping fabric echoed through the faculty lounge as 28-year-old Madison Winters felt her dress tear from shoulder to waist, the other teachers laughing as she desperately tried to cover herself. What started as another day of workplace harassment at Riverside High would end with armed tactical units surrounding the school, all because of a tiny camera hidden in her necklace that captured evidence so damning the FBI would later classify it as a matter of national security. Nobody knew that the young teacher they'd been tormenting for months had been building a case that would bring down not just her colleagues, but an entire criminal network operating within the education system. Before we dive into Madison's incredible story, I just want to say thank you for being here. Stories like this one about finding courage in our darkest moments only reach the people who need them because of viewers like you. If this resonates with you, please consider hitting that like button and sharing your thoughts in the comments. Your experiences matter, and you never know who might find strength in your words. And if you'd like to help these stories reach more people who might be facing their own battles, there's a thanks button below where you can show your support. Every contribution helps me create more content that hopefully makes a difference in someone's day. Now let's get back to that faculty lounge where everything changed. Madison pressed her torn dress against her body with trembling hands, trying to maintain some dignity as laughter erupted around her. The faculty lounge at Riverside High School in Millbrook, Connecticut had become her personal hell every Tuesday morning during the 10:15 a.m. meeting. Today was supposed to be different. She'd finally gathered enough courage to file a formal complaint with the superintendent about the escalating harassment. But Derek Sullivan, the athletic director and nephew of Principal Henderson, had other plans. "Ooh," Derek said, his voice dripping with mock innocence as he twirled the piece of fabric he'd torn from her dress. "Guess you should have worn something sturdier, Miss Winters. Though with a first-year teacher's salary, I'm surprised you can afford anything at all." The reference to her financial situation stung almost as much as the physical assault. Madison had taken the teaching position at Riverside High 6 months ago, fresh out of her master's program with idealistic dreams of making a difference. But she'd quickly learned that the prestigious school operated more like a criminal enterprise than an educational institution. "Did anyone see what just happened?" Madison called out to the dozen other faculty members in the room. Mrs. Chen, the chemistry teacher whose position had been bought by her wealthy family, studied her coffee intently. Coach Morrison turned to the window. Even elderly Mrs. Patterson, who'd always been kind to Madison in private, suddenly found her lesson plans fascinating. "I'm afraid I didn't see anything," Miss Winters' Vice Principal Richards said smoothly. "Perhaps you should be more careful. The faculty lounge can be a dangerous place for clumsy people." Madison felt her cheeks burn. This was how it always went. Teachers who looked the other way. Administrators who found excuses. Security cameras that mysteriously malfunctioned whenever incidents occurred. But they didn't know about the butterfly pendant hanging around her neck, a gift from her late grandmother that she'd modified with a tiny camera and audio recorder 3 weeks ago. "Give it back," Madison said quietly, reaching for the torn fabric in Derek's hand. "Or what?" Derek stepped closer and she could smell his expensive cologne mixed with the coffee brewing in the corner. "You'll run to the superintendent, you'll file another complaint that gets lost in the system. Face it, Winters, you don't belong here." His crew laughed. Tyler Morrison, the football coach whose hiring had bypassed 3 more qualified candidates. Brittany Chen, who taught chemistry despite having no teaching certification, and Jake Palmer, the guidance counselor whose father happened to be the police chief. They formed a semicircle around Madison, cutting off her escape routes. "You know what your problem is, Winters," Brittany said, examining her perfectly manicured nails. "You don't understand how things work here. There's a hierarchy, and you're at the bottom of it." Madison clutched her teaching materials tighter, feeling the weight of her pendant against her chest. Every word was being recorded, every sneer captured. She'd learned to angle her body just right to catch their faces in the frame. 3 weeks of systematic documentation had yielded more than enough evidence of harassment, but something told her today would be different. There was a gleam in Derek's eyes she hadn't seen before. "Leave me alone," Madison said, trying to push past them. Tyler blocked her path. "We're just trying to help you understand your place. Consider it professional development." "Speaking of development," Derek said, pulling out his phone, "I've got some interesting photos here." Amazing what you can do with AI these days. Your face, but definitely not your body, if you know what I mean. Madison's blood ran cold. "You wouldn't dare." "Wouldn't I?" Derek's smile widened. "Unless you want the whole school board to see Miss Winters after hours, you're going to do exactly what I say." The 10:30 a.m. bell rang, signaling the start of second period, but nobody moved. Other teachers filed past in the hallway, carefully avoiding eye contact. Everyone knew better than to interfere with Derek Sullivan's business. First, Derek continued, "You're going to withdraw your discrimination complaint about the hiring practices here. Then you're going to submit your resignation, effective immediately." Today, Madison's mind raced. Her complaint had exposed how certain wealthy families had been buying teaching positions for their unqualified relatives, bypassing standard hiring procedures. The chemistry teacher position alone had sold for $50,000 under the table. "I'm not resigning, Madison," said her voice steadier than she felt. "Then I guess everyone gets a show." Derek's thumb hovered over the send button. "The school board, the parents, your students." 3, 2. Wait, Madison's hand shot to her pendant, a gesture that looked like nervous fidgeting but was actually checking the recording light. Still on. "Just let me think." Clocks ticking. Winters. Brittany smirked. "Though I have to say, the photos are quite artistic. Derek's got real talent with Photoshop." Madison backed against the coffee station, feeling the hot plate against her spine. 3 weeks of recording had taught her valuable lessons about evidence gathering. She needed them to be specific about their crimes. "So you created fake nude photos of me?" she asked, making sure to speak clearly. Derek laughed. "Fake? That's such an ugly word. Let's call them artistic interpretations. And unless you want them interpreted by everyone in Millbrook, you'll do what you're told. And if I resign, you'll delete them. Scout's honor," Derek said, holding up 3 fingers in mock salute. "Though I should mention Tyler's dad has connections throughout the state education system. You'll want to consider a career change entirely." Madison felt tears prick her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. "Not here. Not in front of them. Can I at least go to the bathroom first? I need to fix my dress." 5 minutes, Derek said, checking his gold watch, a Rolex that cost more than Madison's annual salary. "Tyler, go with her. Make sure she doesn't try anything stupid." "I don't need an escort to the bathroom," Madison protested. "You don't get to make demands," Jake said coldly. "You're lucky we're being this generous. Some of us wanted to handle this situation differently." The threat in his voice was unmistakable. Madison gathered her things, holding her torn dress with one hand. As she passed Derek, he whispered, "This is what happens to teachers who don't play ball in Millbrook." The walk to the bathroom felt like a death march. Tyler followed 3 steps behind his footsteps, echoing in the empty hallway. Most students were already in their second period classes, leaving the corridors eerily quiet. Madison's mind worked frantically, calculating her options. The pendant had captured everything, but who would she show it to? Principal Henderson was Derek's uncle. The school board was staffed with parents of her tormentors. Even the local police seemed to be in their pocket. She pushed open the bathroom door, grateful to find it empty. "Wait outside," she told Tyler. "Doctor stays open," he countered, leaning against the frame. "Derek's orders." Madison moved to the sink, examining her reflection. The tear in her dress ran from her right shoulder down to her waist, held together now only by her death grip on the fabric. Her face was pale but determined. She'd been documenting everything for 3 weeks, but she'd been too afraid to act. The evidence on her pendant could destroy them all, but only if she could get it to someone who wasn't already compromised. That's when she remembered the business card in her purse. Agent Sarah Coleman from the FBI's White-Collar Crime Division had given it to her after speaking at a teaching conference about identifying financial crimes in educational institutions. "If you ever see anything suspicious," the agent had said, "call me directly." Madison pulled out her phone, then hesitated. Tyler was right outside, probably listening. She needed a distraction. "Tyler!" she called out. "I need help." "The tear is worse than I thought." She heard him sigh dramatically. "Not my problem, Winters. Please, I can't go back out there like this. Just. Can you get me some safety pins from the nurse's office? I'll stay right here." There was a pause. "You better not move," Tyler warned. "I'll be back in 2 minutes." The moment his footsteps faded, Madison dialed the number on the card. It rang once before a crisp voice answered. "Agent Coleman." "This is Madison Winters," she whispered urgently. "I'm a teacher at Riverside High School in Millbrook, and I have evidence of criminal activity. Faculty members are threatening me with deepfake pornographic images, trying to force me to resign. I've been recording everything for weeks." "Madison, are you in immediate danger?" Agent Coleman's voice sharpened. "Yes. They're waiting for me. They want me to resign today and withdraw my complaint about illegal hiring practices. If I don't," Madison's voice cracked, "they'll release the fake photos to everyone. Listen carefully. Do not resign. Do not sign anything. Can you safely get to a secure location? The principal is one of them. His nephew is the one threatening me." Madison heard Agent Coleman typing rapidly. "Okay, we're mobilizing units now. I need you to stay calm and buy us time. Where exactly are you?" "Second floor bathroom by the faculty lounge." "But they're expecting me back in 5 minutes. We'll be there in 15. Can you stall?" Madison heard footsteps approaching. "I have to go. Please hurry." She hung up just as Tyler returned, holding a handful of safety pins. "Here," he said, tossing them on the counter. "Hurry up." Madison's hands shook as she tried to pin her dress. The fabric was torn too badly to hold properly, but she made a show of attempting to fix it. Each second felt like an hour. Would the FBI really come? What if Agent Coleman thought she was exaggerating? "That's good enough," Tyler said impatiently. "Let's go." Madison followed him back to the faculty lounge where the others were waiting. The room had been rearranged, chairs pulled into a circle like some kind of tribunal. Derek sat in the center, his phone still in hand. "Took you long enough," he said. "Sit down. Time to write that resignation letter." Madison sat carefully, trying not to disturb the precarious safety pins. "I need to know you'll actually delete the photos." "You're not really in a position to negotiate," Jake said, speaking for the first time. His voice carried the same authority his father probably used when intimidating suspects. "But sure, resign and we'll delete them." "Right, Derek, cross my heart," Derek said, though his smirk suggested otherwise. Brittany produced a piece of school letterhead and an expensive pen. "Here, we've even drafted it for you. All you have to do is copy it in your handwriting and sign." Madison looked at the typed words. It was worse than she'd imagined. Not only did it announce her immediate resignation, but it also included an admission of unprofessional conduct and mental health issues that made her unfit for teaching. "This is blackmail," Madison said quietly. "This is problem-solving," Derek corrected. "Your presence here created a problem. We're solving it." Madison picked up the pen, her hand trembling. She needed to stall. "My handwriting's shaky." Can I have some water first, for fuck's sake? Tyler muttered. I'll get it. Nobody moves. As Tyler left again, Madison began writing as slowly as possible, forming each letter with exaggerated care. Her pendant continued recording, capturing every threat, every admission. She was halfway through the first sentence when she heard its sirens in the distance. Derek heard it too. His head snapped up, eyes narrowing. Probably just an ambulance, he said, but uncertainty crept into his voice. The sirens grew louder. Multiple vehicles. Getting closer. Keep writing, Brittany ordered, but she'd moved to the window. Guys, there are police cars pulling up. So, Jake said, though he'd gone pale. My dad probably sent them for something else. Madison continued her painfully slow writing, her heart hammering. Through the window, she could see black SUVs joining the police cars. Federal plates. Those aren't local cops, Tyler said, running back into the room. There's like 20 vehicles out there. What the hell did you do, Winters? I didn't do anything, Madison said truthfully. She'd simply reported a crime in progress. Derek grabbed her arm, his fingers digging in painfully. You called someone. You fucking called someone. Let go of me. Madison tried to pull away, but his grip tightened. Check her for a phone, Brittany said, panic rising in her voice. She must have. The faculty lounge door burst open. Nobody move. FBI agent Coleman entered first, followed by a full tactical team. Their weapons weren't drawn, but their hands rested on their holsters. The teachers froze, a tableau of guilt and shock. Derek Sullivan, Agent Coleman said calmly, I'm going to need you to release Miss Winters and step away from her. Derek's hand fell away from Madison's arm as if burned. This is a mistake. We were just having a faculty meeting. My uncle is the principal. Your uncle is currently being detained for questioning Agent Coleman, informed him, as are several members of the school board and administration. Madison, are you all right? Madison nodded, unable to speak. The pendant around her neck felt suddenly heavy with the weight of everything it had recorded. She's lying about whatever she told you, Brittany said desperately. We're teachers. We were just discussing school policy. Tell them, Mrs. Patterson. Everyone turned to look for the elderly teacher, but she had vanished the moment the sirens started. Actually, Agent Coleman said, producing an evidence bag, we're going to need that pendant, Madison. I believe it contains some interesting recordings. Madison reached up to unclasp her grandmother's necklace, her fingers trembling with a mixture of fear and relief. As she handed it over, Derek made a desperate grab for his phone. Don't even think about it, Agent Coleman warned. Tyler Morrison, Jake Palmer, Brittany Chen, and Derek Sullivan, you're all being detained for questioning regarding charges of criminal harassment, creation, and distribution of pornographic deepfakes, blackmail, and conspiracy to obstruct justice. You can't detain us, Jake protested. We're teachers. I want my father. You're educators who allegedly created and threatened to distribute pornographic images of a colleague, Agent Coleman clarified. And Jake, your father, is currently unavailable. He's being questioned about his department's failure to investigate multiple reported incidents at this school. As more agents entered to secure the scene, Madison felt the weight of the past months finally lifting. The torn dress didn't matter anymore. The threats didn't matter. What mattered was that someone had finally listened. We'll need a full statement, Agent, Coleman told her gently. But first, let's get you somewhere safe and find you something proper to wear. As Madison was escorted out, she passed Principal Henderson being led away in handcuffs. His face was gray with shock, his careful empire crumbling in real time. Through the hallway windows, she could see news vans already arriving, drawn by the spectacle of federal agents swarming one of Connecticut's most prestigious schools. One more thing, Agent Coleman said as they reached the main entrance. Your complaint about the hiring practices had opened up a much larger investigation. What you've documented here today, it's going to help us clean up a lot more than just workplace harassment. Madison clutched the evidence bag containing her torn dress evidence now, not shame. What happens to them, that depends on what else we find. But based on what you've told us and what I suspect is on that recording, they're facing serious federal charges. Creating pornographic images of anyone using AI, even fake ones, is a federal crime. Using them for blackmail makes it worse. As they stepped outside, Madison saw her car in the parking lot where she'd left it that morning, back when she was just a first-year teacher trying to make a difference. Now federal agents were searching the vehicles of her tormentors while their lawyers arrived in a parade of luxury cars. "There's more," Madison said suddenly. "Other teachers they've forced out." Emma Watson quit last month after they spread rumors about her. David Martinez left after Jake's father had him investigated on false allegations. They've been doing this for years. Agent Coleman's expression hardened. "We'll find them all. Every victim, every crime. Your evidence is the key that's going to unlock all of it." The sound of a helicopter overhead made everyone look up. News choppers were already circling, turning Riverside High's manicured campus into ground zero of what would become a national scandal. "Ready to go to the field office?" Agent Coleman asked. "We have a lot to discuss." Madison took one last look at the school that had been her torment for 6 months. Through the faculty lounge windows, she could see agents cataloging evidence while her former colleagues sat in stunned silence. "Actually," she said, "I need to go back inside for a minute." Agent Coleman looked concerned, but nodded. "I'll go with you." "There's something else, isn't there?" Madison met her eyes. "Derek's office. He showed me once when he was bragging. He keeps backup drives. They're recordings and photos of other teachers. Not just fake ones." The agent's jaw tightened. "Show me." As they walked back through the school's grand entrance past the trophy cases celebrating academic excellence and the portraits of distinguished alumni, Madison felt a strange sense of power. For months, these hallways had been her prison. Now she was the one holding the keys. They reached Derek's office in the athletic department, and Agent Coleman called for a warrant over her radio. Within minutes, they had legal permission to search. The backup drives were exactly where Madison had said they'd be, hidden in a hollowed-out training manual Derek had bragged about creating. "Jesus," Agent Coleman breathed as she bagged the evidence. "If there's what I think there is on these drives," he called it his insurance policy, Madison said quietly. "Said everyone important at Riverside owed him favors because of what he had on them." More agents arrived to process the office, and Madison heard one of them whistle low. "We're going to need a bigger evidence team. This connects to cases in 3 different states." As they emerged from the school for the second time, Madison saw that the crowd had grown. Parents, reporters, and what looked like half the town had gathered behind police barriers. Some were shouting about government overreach. Others were crying, finally understanding why their loved ones had left teaching. "Madison," a voice called out from the crowd. She turned to see Mrs. Martinez, David's wife, tears streaming down her face. Thank you for being brave," others took up the cry. Teachers who'd been forced out, spouses who'd watched their partners come home broken, community members who'd suspected something was wrong but hadn't known how to fight it. They lined the walkway as Madison made her way to the FBI vehicle, some reaching out to touch her shoulder to whisper their gratitude. "You did this," one woman said, gripping Madison's hand. "You saved us all." But Madison shook her head. "We all did this. By speaking up. By refusing to stay silent." As the FBI vehicle pulled away from Riverside High, Madison watched the scene recede in the rear window. Federal agents carrying boxes of evidence, news crews broadcasting live, and the Gothic towers of the school looking less imposing against the chaos below. "I want to keep teaching," Madison said suddenly. "After all this, I still want to teach." Agent Coleman smiled. "I have a feeling there will be some openings at Riverside High very soon. The school's going to need teachers who actually care about education. Madison's phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. She almost ignored it, fearing another threat, but something made her open it. "This is Emma Watson. I heard what happened. You're my hero. If you need witnesses for court, I kept everything they did to me. Every message, every threat, every forced resignation letter. I'm ready to testify." Another text followed immediately. "This is David Martinez. Count me in, too. They thought they destroyed us, but we kept receipts. Time for justice." Madison smiled, the first real smile she'd allowed herself in months. She showed the messages to Agent Coleman, who nodded approvingly. "Looks like you started something," she said. Through the car window, Madison could see the sun setting over Millbrook, painting the sky in shades of justice and hope. Tomorrow there would be lawyers and statements, and probably more threats from those still clinging to power. But tonight she was just a 28-year-old teacher who'd stood up to her bullies and won. Her phone rang, Agent Coleman's number. "Madison, I wanted you to know we've made 16 arrests so far, with more coming. The evidence on your pendant. It's extensive. You documented patterns we've been trying to prove for years." "What happens now?" Madison asked. "Now we build our case. With what you've given us, we're looking at federal racketeering charges. This goes all the way to the state education department. You didn't just save yourself, Madison. You've exposed a criminal enterprise." After they hung up, Madison leaned back in her seat, exhaustion finally catching up with her. The torn dress she still wore no longer felt like a badge of shame, but a battle scar. Tomorrow, she'd have to face the aftermath, the trials, the media attention, the inevitable retaliation attempts from those still free. But for now, she was safe. She was believed. She was free. As they turned onto the highway, Madison saw her reflection in the window, no longer the idealistic first-year teacher who'd walked into Riverside High 6 months ago, but a warrior who'd fought for her profession and won. "School's gonna be different now," Agent Coleman said. Madison thought about the empty offices that would greet her when she returned, Derek's crew all suspended pending investigation, corrupt administrators removed, an entire power structure dismantled. "Good," she said simply. The teacher who'd been torn down that morning would return as someone stronger, someone who'd proven that education was worth fighting for. The butterfly pendant was gone, but its purpose lived on in the recordings that would bring justice. The courtroom erupted in chaos as the prosecutor played Madison's pendant recording, Derek Sullivan's voice filling the space with crystal clarity. "This is what happens to teachers who don't play ball in Millbrook." Madison sat in the witness box, her hands folded calmly in her lap, watching Derek's wealthy parents shrink in their seats as their son's crimes echoed off the mahogany walls of the federal courthouse. 6 months had passed since the FBI raid on Riverside High, and the trials were finally underway. Madison had testified in 9 different proceedings already, her pendant recordings serving as the cornerstone of what media outlets had dubbed the Millbrook education scandal. Today was Derek's turn, facing federal charges that could result in 20 years in prison. Miss Winter's defense attorney, Harold Ashford, stood his $1,000 suit impeccable, despite the sweat beading on his forehead. "Isn't it true that you illegally recorded my client without his consent?" Madison met his gaze steadily. "Connecticut is a one-party consent state, Mr. Ashford. I was protecting myself from ongoing workplace harassment and criminal threats. By secretly recording private conversations between colleagues, by documenting threats against my career and personal safety," Madison corrected. "Your client created and threatened to distribute pornographic deepfakes of me. That's a federal crime regardless of how it was discovered. The prosecutor assistant U.C. Attorney Jennifer Martinez stood. "I'd like to play Exhibit 47, Your Honor." The courtroom fell silent as Derek's voice filled the space again, describing in detail how he'd used AI to create the explicit images. Several jurors visibly recoiled. Mrs. Sullivan buried her face in her hands, while her husband stared straight ahead, his jaw clenched. Madison had grown used to these moments, the sharp intake of breath, when people realized the full extent of what had been happening at Riverside High. The pendant had captured 3 weeks of systematic abuse, but the FBI's investigation had uncovered years of criminal behavior. Derek's hard drives alone had contained blackmail material on 23 teachers and 8 administrators across the state. The defense would like to note that my client was acting within his role as athletic director, Ashford tried again. A role he obtained through his uncle's nepotism, Martinez countered. The evidence shows a sophisticated operation involving extortion, fraud, and the systematic harassment of educators who threatened their illegal hiring scheme. Judge Patricia Chen, no relation to the former chemistry teacher, peered over her glasses. The defendant's position does not grant immunity from federal charges, Mr. Ashford. Madison watched Derek squirm in his seat. Gone was the confident predator who'd terrorized Riverside's faculty. 6 months in federal custody awaiting trial had stripped away his bravado, leaving a man whose family's money couldn't save him from consequences. Miss Winters Ashford made one last attempt. Isn't it convenient that you happen to be recording on the exact day my client allegedly threatened you? Madison almost smiled. I'd been recording for 3 weeks, Mr. Ashford. Your client threatened me almost daily. It would have been harder not to capture evidence. A ripple of dark laughter passed through the gallery where other victims sat. Emma Watson was there, having returned from California, where she'd relocated after being forced out. David Martinez sat with his wife, his false allegations cleared, but the trauma still visible in his eyes. They'd all testified, or would soon, a parade of voices finally being heard. When Madison stepped down from the witness box, she passed Derek's table. He couldn't meet her eyes. His hands, which had once torn her dress with such casual cruelty, now shook as he faced the possibility of decades in federal prison. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed. Madison had learned to navigate them over the past months, offering brief statements before escaping to the waiting car where Agent Coleman sat. "How did it go?" Coleman asked, though the answer was written on Madison's face. "He's finished," Madison said simply. "Martinez says he'll probably take a plea deal now. 20 years is a long time." They drove in comfortable silence through Millbrook's transformed streets. For sale signs dotted the lawns of previously untouchable families. The Sullivan mansion, seized as proceeds of criminal enterprise, would soon house a teacher resource center. Principal Henderson's house had already been sold, the proceeds going to a restitution fund for affected educators. "Back to school tomorrow?" Coleman asked. Madison nodded. Riverside High was a different place now. The Gothic towers remained, but the culture within had been completely transformed. Dr. Patricia Williams, the new principal brought in from Chicago, had actual educational experience and zero tolerance for corruption. The entire school board had been elected in a special referendum that saw record turnout. That evening, Madison video called with the support group she'd helped establish, Educators for Integrity. The dozen teachers on the screen had all survived similar harassment at schools across the state, their stories emerging after Madison's case made national news. "Jake Palmer got 18 years, Emma reported. The judge said his abuse of his guidance counselor position was particularly egregious. "Good," David added from his square on the screen. "Did you see Brittany Chen's allocution? She actually admitted to selling grades." Only after they found her spreadsheet, another teacher chimed in. $50,000 in bribes over 2 years. Madison listened to her colleagues discuss the trials with a mixture of satisfaction and sadness. Justice was being served, but nothing could give them back the careers derailed or the trust broken. Still, they were building something new from the ashes. "Hey," Emma said, "did you all see the news about Tyler Morrison? His whole family's under investigation now." Turns out the athletic department corruption went back 20 years. Madison hadn't heard that detail. The former football coach had been one of the first to take a plea deal, his testimony revealing a decades-long scheme of selling coaching positions and manipulating student-athlete records. "My nephew just got hired at Riverside," David said with a smile. "First in his family to become a teacher." He said the interview process was actually legitimate. Imagine that. The scope still staggered Madison. What had started as one teacher standing up to workplace harassment had exposed a multi-state network of corruption in education. The FBI had created an entire task force dedicated to what they now called Operation Butterfly, named after Madison's pendant. The next morning, Madison walked through Riverside High's doors with her head held high. The hallways that had once been hostile territory now felt like home. Students smiled and waved, many stopping to thank her for cleaning house, as they put it. "Miss Winters," a voice called out. Madison turned to see Ashley Chen, no relation to the former chemistry teacher, one of her American literature students. "Did you see? We won the state academic decathlon with actual studying, not bought answers," Madison beamed. The academic culture at Riverside had transformed once the pay-for-grade scheme ended. Students who had been shut out by the corruption now thrived, their genuine achievements celebrated. Miss Winters, Dr. Williams, appeared in her classroom doorway. "Could I see you for a moment?" The principal's office had been completely transformed, the dark wood and intimidating atmosphere replaced with bright colors and student artwork. Dr. Williams herself was a stark contrast to Henderson, a respected educator with 30 years of experience and a commitment to ethical leadership. "I wanted to let you know," Dr. Williams said, gesturing for Madison to sit. "The documentary crew will be here next week." "Are you still comfortable participating?" Madison nodded. PBS was producing a special about corruption in education, with Madison's story as the centerpiece. She'd agreed to participate on the condition that it focus on systemic reform, not just individual villains. "Also," Dr. Williams continued, "Stanford called. They want to know if you're interested in speaking at their education conference. The topic is courage in the classroom, standing up to institutional corruption." Madison smiled. 6 months ago, she'd been a struggling first-year teacher just trying to survive each day. Now she was nationally recognized as a symbol of integrity in education. "I'll think about it," she said. "But I'm not leaving Riverside. This is where I belong." Dr. Williams's smile widened. "I was hoping you'd say that. We need teachers like you ones who remember why we're really here." Walking back to her classroom, Madison passed the renovated faculty lounge. The space where she'd been assaulted had been completely redesigned, turned into a collaborative workspace where teachers actually wanted to gather. The coffee was better, too, now that they weren't paying inflated prices to somebody's cousin. At lunch, Madison sat with the new faculty members, a diverse group hired through legitimate processes. The conversation flowed easily, focused on curriculum and student success, rather than power plays and protection rackets. "Did you hear?" asked Marcus Thompson, the new chemistry teacher with actual credentials. 3 more states are implementing Madison's law mandatory reporting systems for educational corruption. Madison blushed. The legislation requiring schools to maintain secure channels for reporting harassment and financial crimes had spread rapidly after her case made headlines. The butterfly pendant had become a symbol of speaking truth to power. After school, Madison attended the weekly support meeting for teachers affected by the scandal. The group had grown from a handful to over 50 educators, some driving hours to attend. "I got my job back," announced Sarah Mitchell, a math teacher who'd been forced out of a school in Hartford. "They reviewed my case after the Millbrook scandal broke. Full reinstatement with back pay." The room erupted in applause. These small victories mattered as much as the big prosecutions. Every teacher returned to their classroom was a win for education. That evening, Madison received a call from Agent Coleman. "Thought you'd want to know we just arrested the last member of the network." A superintendent in Rhode Island who was selling administrative positions. "How many is that total?" Madison asked. 63 individuals across 4 states. Your recording didn't just expose Riverside High, Madison. It revealed an entire shadow system operating in education. After they hung up, Madison sat in her small apartment grading papers. The same job that had once filled her with dread now brought satisfaction. Her students were engaged writing thoughtful essays about integrity and justice themes that resonated deeply after their school's transformation. Her phone buzzed with a text from Emma. "Check the news. Big announcement coming." Madison turned on the television to see a press conference. The Attorney General was announcing a nationwide initiative to investigate corruption in education with Operation Butterfly as the model. "A brave teacher in Connecticut showed us that sunlight is the best disinfectant," the Attorney General said. "Now we're opening the blinds everywhere." Madison smiled, touching the simple necklace she now wore. No hidden camera needed anymore. The butterfly pendant sat in a safety deposit box, its work complete but its symbol living on. A week later, graduation day arrived. Madison sat on the stage as the faculty advisor for the National Honor Society, watching students who had earned their achievements honestly walk across the stage. No more bought grades or fraudulent transcripts, just genuine accomplishment. Dr. Williams approached the podium. "This year has been one of transformation for Riverside High. We've learned that integrity isn't just a word on our mission statement, it's a daily choice. And sometimes it takes tremendous courage to make that choice." She paused, looking directly at Madison. "We have a special recognition today. Miss Madison Winters, would you please come forward?" Confused, Madison stood and walked to the podium. The auditorium erupted in applause, students, parents, and fellow teachers rising to their feet. The Riverside High School Board of Education has unanimously voted to establish the Madison Winters Award for Ethical Excellence, Dr. Williams announced. This annual award will recognize educators who demonstrate extraordinary courage in upholding the integrity of our profession. Madison felt tears prick her eyes as she accepted the plaque. 6 months ago, she'd stood in a faculty lounge with a torn dress, feeling powerless. Now her name would inspire future teachers to stand up for what was right. "Thank you," she managed, looking out at the sea of faces. "But this recognition belongs to all of us. Every teacher who refused to give up on education, every student who demanded better, every parent who supported change. We did this together." As she returned to her seat, Madison caught sight of some familiar faces in the audience. Emma Watson sat with her family, having returned to teaching at a nearby school. David Martinez was there with his wife, now serving on the Reformed School Board. They'd all been broken by the old system, but had helped build something better. The ceremony continued, but Madison's mind wandered to the upcoming trials. Derek Sullivan had ultimately taken a plea deal, 15 years in federal prison, with no possibility of early release. His uncle, Principal Henderson, was serving 20 years for leading the criminal enterprise. The others had received various sentences, their teaching careers over and their reputations destroyed. But more importantly, systemic changes were taking hold. Background checks were now mandatory and rigorous. Financial audits were conducted quarterly. Anonymous reporting systems were in place and actually monitored. The culture of fear had been replaced with one of accountability. After the ceremony, Madison was surrounded by well-wishers. Parents thanked her for saving their children's education. Students hugged her and promised to carry forward the lessons of integrity. Fellow teachers, both old and new, expressed gratitude for her courage. "Miss Winters," a shy voice said. Madison turned to see a young woman she didn't recognize. "I'm Rebecca Chen, Brittany's younger sister. I just wanted to say thank you." What my sister did was wrong, and your courage in exposing it helped our whole family confront some hard truths. Madison took the young woman's hand. Are you planning to become a teacher? Rebecca nodded. The right way. With actual qualifications and a real desire to help students. Then something good came from all of this, Madison said gently. As the crowds dispersed, Madison stood outside Riverside High, looking up at the Gothic towers that no longer seemed intimidating. The building was the same, but everything inside had changed. The hallways that had echoed with threats now rang with genuine learning. The offices once occupied by corrupt administrators now housed educators committed to their students. Agent Coleman appeared beside her. Proud of what you've built here, we built it, Madison corrected. I just started the recording. Speaking of which, Coleman said, pulling out a small box. The FBI is returning this to you. The trials are over, the evidence is preserved in transcripts. We thought you should have it back. Madison opened the box to find her grandmother's butterfly pendant, the hidden camera that had changed everything. She held it up to the light, remembering the day she'd installed the tiny device, desperate for protection. What will you do with it? Coleman asked. Madison considered for a moment, then smiled. I think I'll donate it to the Smithsonian. They're doing an exhibit on whistleblowers who changed America. Seems fitting. They stood in comfortable silence, watching as families took photos in front of the school. Riverside High had become a symbol of redemption, proof that corrupt systems could be dismantled and rebuilt. Any regrets? Coleman asked. Madison thought about the months of fear, the public scrutiny, the exhausting legal proceedings. Then she looked at the graduating students, at her fellow teachers, at the transformed school. None, she said firmly. I became a teacher to make a difference. It just happened in a way I never expected. As the sun set over Millbrook, casting long shadows across the campus, Madison knew her journey was far from over. There would be more conferences to speak at, more teachers to train, more systems to reform. The butterfly effect of her courage continued to ripple outward, inspiring others to stand up against corruption in their own institutions. But for tonight, she was simply Madison Winters, a second-year teacher who had survived her first year through a trial by fire and emerged stronger. Tomorrow, she'd return to her classroom ready to teach not just literature, but the life lessons her students had witnessed firsthand, that integrity matters, that courage can change systems, and that sometimes the smallest acts of defiance can transform the world. The butterfly pendant had done its work, capturing truth in the darkness. Now, in the light of a new era at Riverside High, Madison could finally spread her wings and soar. The young teacher who had once recorded her tormentors in secret had become a beacon of hope for educators everywhere, proof that one voice raised in truth could indeed change everything. As she walked to her car, Madison passed a group of new teachers heading into the building for orientation. They looked nervous but excited, ready to begin their careers in a school that now valued education over corruption. "Welcome to Riverside High," she called out to them. "You're going to love it here." And for the first time since she'd started teaching, Madison truly meant it.